Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Boring Show. My name is Matt.
I'm Craig.
And today we're going to pick up where we left off in the last Boring Show. We were mucking about with navigation bars and animations. And we kind of got to a certain point, right?
Yeah, sorry we made you wait a whole month for us to type the thing that we needed to make the animation correct, but we've done a little bit of homework, and I think we're ready to go.
Yep. We've got a couple of things we're going to refactor, revise to make our code work better. And then we're going to try to make our animations look lovely.
Sounds good. Shall we?
Yep. So we are in the DashCast podcast app. And to recap, we added this lovely bottom navigation bar. We have a hot tub icon because hot tubs. And we have this other icon, which I can't even remember what it is.
What's Hot Tub Time Machine, remember?
This is a Hot Tub Time Machine.
That really bad movie.
That should be a clock.
I thought it was a clock.
It's the best time machine movie ever. There's a Hot Tub Time Machine 2. Seriously.
Really?
Yeah, there is. I haven't watched it. Welcome to the Hot Tub Time Machine episode. And we can click in it and we can navigate to currently a dummy screen. And you can see that there's a little bit of animation going on there, but it is not.
It's wonderful.
There we go. This is wonderful.
It's really good.
No, it's not. It's terrible. But we're going to make it better.
Terrible. Yeah, let's do it.
And so how are we going to make this better?
Well, where we last saw our heroes, they were battling hard against the fact that the circle was staying full through the duration of the animation. And we were both blanking on how to get the painter to draw more of a donut and less of a plate.
Yes.
But maybe less of a pancake.
Pancake, yeah, more of a, yes.
Yes, but we've got it. So I think we should start there.
Okay, sorry, I'm still reeling from being called a hero. So let's remember where we are in the codes. Let's get rid of all these because we don't need them. And so we have all of this stuff, but we were playing down here in
a painter, right?
So we have the nav-bar. We'll look at the state, which has some animation controllers. It has an update for starting the animation. We've got some animation pieces going on here. And then we have the beacon painter, if I remember correctly. And this is where we're rendering that sort of,
yes.
What did you call it? Plate effect. The plate effect. Because heroes wear plate. Mail.
Yeah,
That's what I did there.
Hey.
That's good. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I planned that.
Hashtag D&D humor. What was I doing? Oh, yes. So we are now here and we're doing some print statements for debugging and whatnot. So, and let's take a quick look. This is what our animation currently looks like. So it's not centered and it is kind of ugly and not donut-y.
Other than that, though,
Looks great.
We're really in a great spot. Other than that.
So where to start?
So the issue that we ran into with our custom painter there on line 209 to 211 is that we were setting our stroke width, and I tell you what, the custom painter or the paint class could maybe use an assert here because that stroke width doesn't do anything unless we set our stroke style. And that is why we were not seeing the inside of the circle catch up to the outside like we had imagined it would.
Oh, okay. So looking at our beacon painter here, basically what we're doing is we're painting a circle with a hard-coded offset at the moment, which is why it's not quite centered. But paint is where the magic happens. It makes it blue, it sets our stroke width, but we need to add
stroke style.
Stroke style. So stroke.
Alarmingly, I'm not seeing it there, but I think that's what it is.
Stroke.
Uh-oh. We're off to a good start.
Are you sure?
Well, not anymore.
Let's see what other stroke we have. We have stroke cap, stroke join, stroke miter limit, and stroke width.
Stroke style.
Stroke style on the
off-screen canvas rendering context 2D. Hello. No, but I really do. I really think
Flutter. That's Flutter Dart HTML.
Yeah.
Does that make a difference?
Well, in theory it shouldn't, but maybe it does. Stroke style property. Well, let's add paint to Flutter paint stroke style. Actually, let's just go to I wonder if it's like border style or something.
Well, let's have a look. I'll have a look for everything with style in it. Blend mode, color, image filter. I don't see anything with style unless I'm that. Oh, we just have style.
Oh, okay. Love that.
And
And then painting style dot stroke.
Hey.
Hey.
Is that a thing? Painting style dot stroke. Okay. Clearly, we have done much preparation, taken many notes, and forgot to bring them with us.
Yep.
Okay. So we're adding in a painting. Well, we're basically saying paint with a stroke.
Yes.
And I'm not sure what that's going to do, but
let's find out.
So now when we click. Oh, whoa.
Look at it. Look at it.
That's like pretty.
It's like a thing.
That's
right?
like pretty.
That's what we were going for last time.
That's amazing. Now, let's briefly recap on like
What
just
it's
some of
doing.
the mathy things here.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have your stroke width,
Mm-hmm.
and basically what you're saying is, for the first half,
Yes.
have it the same as the radius,
Yes.
and then for the second half, make it smaller and smaller and smaller as you get to the end. So that's why
Yes.
you see the. Actually, you know what we can do here?
Ooh.
We could slow that down so people could see it in all its glory.
Oh, that's a thinking idea right there.
That's what was in my brain. So we have custom.
I think
paint.
it's all the way up. The controller is initialized high up in
here
the
we go.
state, right? Yeah.
Start animation. This is milliseconds, so we could
Just put another
make
zero
this
in there.
3,000 milliseconds, and so now when we do this, that is really cool.
The way it interacts with the icon sitting atop it is also, unintentional, but
Kind of cool.
yeah, well, I think it works all right.
Our color scheme is very Swedish flag.
It is, yes.
At least I hope it's very Swedish flag, and if
I think
it's
that's
another
right.
flag, I apologize for insulting the Swedish flag. But I'm pretty sure yellow and
Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay, so we're gonna knock that down to make it 500 just to. Have a look. Okay, that's cool. I really like that splash effect at the end. I could do that for hours. Make that 300. So our moral of the story is: don't watch us spend 10 minutes trying to make stroke width work when you actually have to make your painting style dot stroke.
Care about strokes.
Which is interesting. And we have other painting styles, which is fill, which I'm assuming is the default,
Yep, I am also assuming that.
which makes sense because it was just filling the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we now have, thank you, Swedish flag is yellow and blue.
Confirmed.
I lived there for a year. I really should have remembered that. Now, what are we going to do next?
Well, it's off center.
It is off center, which is kind of unfortunate and not the best.
Not the best. Now, there's different ways that you can go about this. When you're coding your own app, you know how tall things are. You know how many icons there are. There's just a lot of assumptions that you can make because it's your app. So one branch of a way that we can tackle this is just making size assumptions. And I think for the sake of time, that makes sense for us.
Okay.
Now, another way is if you're going to create a generic nav-bar and put it up on pub.dev, then of course, you probably want to allow your users to customize the size, and you have to think about it a little bit more, maybe use the layout builder, see how big is my space? I need to center within that. But we are making an app, we are not making a package.
That's true. Who on earth would make a package for animated nav bars? Craig.
I did make one.
Craig made it.
Which was the original inspiration of this. But so I think that for now we can just tweak our hard-coded offset of 10.10. Our new offset will also be hard-coded, but just hopefully correct.
So we want this to size to the icon?
Yeah, so
Icons are what, typically 40, 45, something like that?
well, if you look, it's not very far
It's
off
pretty
the
close.
center. So I suspect something like 11.11 or 12.12 is going to move us in the right direction.
Let's do this because, I like to put my concept. Let's knock this up here. And this is, hey, heart reload. We can just check it out. Whoa.
It's pretty close. Yeah, we're going to have to slow it down to confirm.
Yeah.
We're going to have to go to the instant replay booth, Bob.
Ooh, is that an American football comment?
I think so. And I'm not aware of any other sports that slow everything down to a grinding halt with instant replay.
Ooh, that actually looks pretty
pretty
on the
good.
nose. Pretty on the nose.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah, you can see the circle just.
Pretty good.
Okay, so again, we're hard coding. We can get away with that. You probably could too if you're specifically laying out your app, but best practice would be get the dimensions of what you're actually fitting in there. You could do interesting things like have a stack and put the two things centered. So you could use a stack for this, for example.
A stack is actually what I used in the aforementioned nav-bar that I made and put on pub.dev.
Could you please tell us, Craig, what the official package title is?
It is called the rolling nav-bar. It gives credit to its Dribble inspiration. I didn't come up with the idea of any of it. But anyway, that uses a stack. So if you're looking for maybe a little more robust implementation of something like this, you can find some source code there.
Cool. So we have, we have this. They're going to get really bored of seeing me change these animation numbers.
Yeah. So let's. Should we refresh the inspiration?
Okay. Yes. So
I haven't actually looked at what we chose. Again, a Dribble design, which you may recall from last week.
Cool. So I am going to bring this up here once Craig finds the link so we can take a look and see what we're building towards. I should talk more about animations while you're looking for it.
Yeah.
No, it's found. Thank God you're saved from that one. Okay. So let me get this into a web. There you go. So there we go. Here is our inspiration. So we now have a reasonably good approximation of the splash. It's not totally accurate, but we could play around with the math at some point. But this thing does a couple of other things. Now these icons sort of pulse in and out, and they're custom animations. So
great kind of thing for Rive if you were to really go all the way.
Exactly. But we could do something a little simpler, which is just pulsing the size of the icons, maybe.
Yeah, I think that would work pretty well. And we've already got, we're going to have to do a little bit of rethinking because the animation that we have is currently routed just to the pulse effect, and the actual icon itself doesn't know anything about that yet.
Okay. So how is that going to affect our implementation? So let's bring up our code here. We're going to hide our beacon painter, and we're going to take a look. So we have our nav-bar where we're holding the state. And in here we have our animation controller. And whenever our widget is modified or changes in the context of the UI, for example, when we click in it, we start the animation, which, by the way, we need to also only animate on the appropriate icon as well.
Yes, we do. Also, last week/month, on line 152 to 154, we were struggling with the animation not firing after it first fired, and we both, again, failed to recall the reset function on an animation controller. So why don't we not reinitialize the controller? And
so we should probably initialize this in its state then.
Well, the thing is,
and then just reset it whenever we start the animation?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's pop this here, and let's then just do a controller
.reset.
.reset.
And of course, that is very likely to be a no-op the first time through, but no-ops are cheap.
I'm going to do a hot restart because I messed with init state.
Actually, I think we would have been okay.
We probably would have been okay because it was still there.
Right,
but
right.
Let's see how this is looking now. So this is probably... Okay. Of course, when I'm clicking on that, that's not...
Right.
The widget's not updating.
I had the same thing. We broke it? Oh, no, we're clicking on the active one.
This is working as intended. Okay, let's fix the whole...
you want to get it happening on just one?
Both of them firing.
Yeah. Okay, so let's remind ourselves how it all works. So we've got start animation. My guess is that we just need to pass a beacon radius of 0 to the inactive icon. But let's...
that would be a neat way of doing it. So we have here...
so our painter there on line 180, right? So we could make our value just 0.
And I was being clever because of...
I think this is good because we're going to need access to I. So just make the yes, turn that into a ternary, right? If
So
I equals active
equals
index.
Equals, so underscore active index or active index?
Oh, it's widget.activeIndex, line 184, queuing us in.
Widget
5.
dot active index.
Yep.
And if it's equal to that, then we animate.
Otherwise, nothing.
Otherwise, 0. And let's take a look and see if that does
I think
what
it's
we
going
want
to
to.
work. Now, there is...
Oh, like the power of ternary.
now,
What happens if we have 3 icons, you may ask? And we're going to say we don't, so it's fine.
wait, no, it would still work.
Actually, it would still work.
Yeah.
So power of ternary.
All right.
All right.
It hits
This is good.
for
Okay,
anything.
we're
Now,
like,
there is one item that I'm recalling based on this implementation because we're using a custom painter for all the icons, even the ones not animating. And this reminds me of the should repaint draw or some function, which we skipped last time.
okay.
And now there would actually be a non-trivial opportunity to implement should redraw or paint or whatever.
Oh, you mean down the painter?
Yeah, that's the one.
So basically we come down here.
Right.
And instead of saying, because when I do this, this is still, I mean,
Right.
the radius is 0.
It's recalculating nothing every time.
Yes.
Yes,
So-
yes.
So what we want to do is, if beacon radius is 0, we don't repaint. I mean, that's kind of a hacky way of doing it, I guess.
Oh, that isn't what I had in mind, but I think it would accomplish everything. All we'd miss out on is I think that would be fine.
I think that would be fine. We could pass in like an index or should paint, but because everything's based on that, what we could simply do here is beacon radius is not equal to 0.
I think that is going to do great.
And this should all work because we haven't changed the state. Probably not going to see any difference here. Okay. Oh, that's interesting.
So,
because okay. Wow, that's.
So what's happening?
I actually prefer this effect. Oh, wait.
Well, it's a bit of a race
it's a
condition,
timing.
I think. Yeah. So what's happening is at the very end, we have to kill the effect. And so that takes the beacon radius back down to 0. And that leaves a possibility if the last frame that it drew, our inner stroke width, if that hasn't caught up to the expanding beacon, and there's one little frame of a ring, which we were seeing, kind of a halo effect on the screen right now. And then on the next cycle, actually it all catches up and collapses down to 0. We've just told it to not repaint, and then we get a ring effect.
That's interesting. And the different sizes of rings.
Right, because it's a race condition.
Okay, so how do we fix that then?
Well, we can be smarter and do the thing that you were talking and actually pass in an is active.
Okay, so we're going to have now this dot is active, and we'll set that to false.
Okay. And we'll need the attribute, of course. Yep.
Final bool
is active.
Active. Probably should underscore those, but you know. No, actually no, because it's this. That's fine. Okay, so that's like my spacing is all over the shop. Okay, so now we have this. Okay, we're going to get rid of our. Well, we're going to leave this for the moment.
Well, I think we can just replace it with is active, right? Return is active.
Is active.
Now, how about this for a little hot tip? Let's make all of the parameters in the beacon constructor required.
Yes, these should, well, except for is active.
Well, that's the only one we added. And what I really want to have happen is the IDE tell us that we added a parameter but haven't yet wired it through. So what if we make them all required?
Okay, so we should get rid of that then, because it's not going to default to anything.
And we'll leave it up to, it's up to us to always tell
so now we get a
the beacon painter.
Yellow thingy, and the yellow thingy is going to tell us,
right there.
Oi, matey, where is active?
Right.
Is active?
Right.
Where is active?
So here we can still use that ternary, but, well, no, it'll be way more simple than that. We just say I equals widget.activeIndex is our new value for is active.
I equals is, okay, so let's.
So is active is our new parameter, yep.
Okay, so we're going to take this and we're going to put in active.
Is active.
Indeed. And we're going to basically say,
Yeah,
if the index it is active, we don't need this anymore. Then,
I agree.
do we?
I think we can just go beacon
Just go
radius.
Beacon radius. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, it's looking really good.
Right. Okay. Moment of truth. Did I mess with state? No, I didn't.
I think we're good.
Ooh.
We're not good.
No, we're not good. In fact, like even the color isn't changing now. What do we do? Wait a second. I'm going to make this false again. No, true.
This is a good test.
No, I need to. Okay. I'm going to do this because state.
I don't think it's that.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to make this is active. Okay.
What?
So, okay, strange things happening. That's okay. Should repaint is active, and we have is active.
So,
I
okay.
equals-
So,
Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think if we put the ternary back on line 180, it's going to work. But this reveals that I actually don't fully understand how the painter works. Because I would have thought if should repaint resolve to false, paint would never get called.
But this is a.
You want to test that?
If this widget is thrown away and rebuilt, which when we're animating is everything it is.
It sure is happening.
The repaint thing doesn't matter because we're rebuilding the thing from scratch.
So I've just wasted a bunch of our time.
No, you haven't. This is good.
We learned that it was a waste of time.
This is should repaint. It should repaint if it's active. We can. Well, let's leave that there. Let's go back to.
It's kind of now. It's misleading. I think we
Yes.
should actually kill it. We should just go
Okay.
back to what we had before. Let's have a Command Z party. That's what I think we should do.
Da, 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 da. Okay, I'm gonna leave these. Just get rid of this, right?
Yes, love it. And then line 199.
This is bad.
Yep.
Get rid of that. Okay, that's good. And then we're going to go back
And then
to
true. Okay, well that was illuminating. I learned a thing.
Yes, it's like
By
widgets
giving
get
you
destroyed
bad
and
advice.
rebuilt. Well, that's good. I still need to put in the custom paint. Oh, that's here now. But we still have the problem of. Why do we
We
not
have
have
problems?
What about the redraw?
Yeah, it's just redrawing nothing.
But remember, we used to have the thing around it. Oh, we fixed that.
Yeah, that was when we had the race
Oh
condition.
yes, we don't have the race condition anymore.
Nope.
This is looking nice.
Yeah.
This is looking good. Pulsing the icon. So we now want to layer in multiple animations. And the nice thing is that these animations will start and stop at the same time.
Yep. We're
So-
driving with the same controller.
We can probably also get away with potentially the same curve. Don't know yet. We'll have to see. Oh, it's
Yeah,
gonna
we
pulse
certainly
in and
have
out.
it. Yes, we have it set up where we know if we find, oh man, the other one's going to look way better with a different curve. We know kind of how to.
But the question is this controller going to work? Because this controller will go from start to finish in 300 milliseconds. But we need it to animate bigger and then animate smaller, which is a forward and a reverse.
Well, or a first 50%, last 50%, which is similar to what we have in the
That's true.
Pulse animation right now.
Okay. So let's... right, so where are we going to start with this?
I think
Yeah.
that, well, do you have any ideas before I just blab on eternally?
I think we're going to be using what are we going to use there's a scaling factor widget, isn't there?
Oh, I'm super bad at implicit animations. If you want to drive on that, that'd be great.
I don't think it's implicit. Is there an implicit one?
Oh.
To the Googles. See what we have. So there's a bunch of implicit animations, which include things like fading out. Is there a rotation one? There might be.
I always just use the translation.
Is there a translation? Well, they are translation. Fade translation.
Fade
transition.
So Flutter fade transition.
Okay, so we have a fade
Autocomplete thinks
transition.
it's real. Hey, there's even a widget of the week.
Do we have a size transition?
Oh yeah, wait. Why did I type fade? Okay, so that I think yes, and I thought that's what you were talking about, and the answer appears to be yes.
Okay, so we have a size transition.
And so size transition takes a size refactor. This seems like this is just a wrapper around the translation widget.
Yes.
Okay. Well then.
So this one takes an animation, axis alignment widget child, so we can play around with this. So we're going to have a size transition widget, correct?
I think so.
And we're going to put a size translation widget around the icon.
Yes.
Okay, our icons, code's getting a little complicated here.
It is.
It's still doable. We still want the gesture detector, but we're going to want to put this, wrap this as a widget. Size translation, correct? Transition?
Transition, yes.
Transition. This is going to require a size factor, which is the animation. So we have size factor. We're going to have to work out what the animation is, aren't we? Size factor.
So this is where I honestly often find myself a little confused with the implicit animations. And just having the controller drive something directly seems more straightforward to me, but I'm very happy to.
Well, I'd like to reuse as much as what we have at the moment. And we have an explicit controller, and we have a tween animation that we're using to drive, basically change beacon radius. So we probably want to, so let's not do this for the moment then. Let's think this through. So we're going to want a second animation.
Well, what if we tried just wrapping it in a translation? And we just grow its size.
So you want to wrap the icon in a translation?
I think so.
Okay.
And
it's all new territory.
Is
it called translation? There isn't a translation widget.
Oh, what's the word?
Form.
That's the one.
Oh, we're gonna. Matrix math inbound.
No, it's gonna
Matrix math inbound.
No, it's gonna be easier than that. I swear.
Okay, so
once
we got
you remember the word.
We have a transform. It is going to take a matrix 4, which is our transform.
Well, I think we can just. Isn't there a? I think there's a constructor for us. See if there's a good name constructor.
Transform.scale. Oh, there we go.
It's super easy.
Oh.
So our scale.
So we have double scale now. So we have something like scale of 1. Fine. That's still.
So we've just created a nice no-op.
Yes.
But now that scale can be driven by beacon radius, which informs that beacon radius is no longer a great name for that variable. But
you're going to try drive it from beacon radius.
Yeah, and then we'll just change its name later to something better, like
what we have is
progress.
we could do math. Correct me if I'm wrong. We could do mathsy things. We could have an icon scale double. And then inside set state, we could do something like when it goes from 0 to 0.5, scale it up. And when it goes from 0.5 to 1, scale it back down again.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, just make another variable. Yeah. That's way better than what I was thinking. I'm a crazy person.
No, you're not. Which would you prefer to do?
The one that you just said is way better.
Okay. It's also my fault if it all goes horribly pear-shaped.
No, I think it's going to work. It's good. So we'll make a new thing, and that'll be icon scale.
Okay. So we are going to
another double
up here. Double. Call it icon
scale.
Dear me. Scale. You know what? This should probably be final, but anyway. Pedantic.
So now we can probably initialize it either on line 133 or in a init state to 1.0.
Yeah, I mean, usually sometimes I just do something like
right there.
This. But of course, I could also do this here.
Well, I think here we want the default state for that, right? So for this one, I think it's actually 1.
Oh yeah, that's true. So this is a 1.
Yeah.
You know what? We don't need this anymore.
Nice.
Okay.
Cool.
So let's just make sure I haven't broken anything. I have not. This is good. So now we have the icon scale of 1. So, right, math time.
Well, we can do it. So we'll just say if underscore curve dot value.
So we're in here.
Yep.
Okay.
Dot value is less than 0.5. Then our scale is 1 plus the value times 2.
So it's going to be icon scale. Excuse me. Icon scale.
You like that, Sackle?
You're going to be taking over soon. Icon scale is going to be 1 plus underscore curve dot value.
And then that, well, it depends how, do we want to double it? Do we want to 1.5 it? Do we want to, so right now we're going to pulse it 150%, which actually probably look good.
Well, it will,
200% might be
let's
too
leave
much.
it at that. Actually, you know what, if we do, oh, wait, okay, so that's fine. Then we have down here, in our builder, we have icon scale. See, typed it right? Yes?
There's one other thing we need.
What's that?
If I equals widget.activeIndex, else 1.
Oh.
This is really informing a lot of...
I would come back and refactor this whole list thing at this point.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
But for the sake of things, we're basically going to do this.
Yep. Else just 1.
Yeah, 1.
Nice.
Okay. So this should now...
Well, we didn't do the second
grow.
half. Yeah, yeah.
It's growing. It's also being constrained by the... Is it?
What's being constrained? I think we're good.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it 1.5 times the size? Actually, it might be.
Yeah, and we've only programmed half of it, right?
Yep. So now what we do is else, and we are going to go icon
Scale equals 1.5 minus
underscore curve.
Wait. No, this isn't going to work even a little bit because we are starting at our curve.value starts at 0.5. So we're actually going to be driving it from 1 down to a half. So we need to do 2 minus.
Why does it start at 1.5?
Because, sorry, our curve value is 0.5.
With the, yeah, I get you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So,
And it does a little growy.
Does a
And
growy
then the
thing.
shrinky.
It does.
Hey.
I think one of our problems here is it's just kind of hard. The contrast is a little off.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And if we up the contrast,
Super ugly.
one of the benefits of this, as you can see, is that it's two-tone or three-tone is the background, and then it really pops.
Right. Yes. Do we want to commit to a colored nav bar on DashCast?
I'm kind of happy with this at the moment. I think the colors could be improved. That's really cool. This is taken very little effort to get this far. This code could do with a bit of refactoring at this point.
Indeed. We can always have Will fly all the way back out here from New York and apply some more material guidelines.
I like the way it works. And if we wanted to do something like, times 2.
Oh, this is going to get real wonky.
Oh,
yeah.
So then that's going to be 4.
Right. We have an implicit. Yeah. We've cut a lot of corners here.
Yes. This is because...
Makes this code not easily editable.
Oh, this is going to go to 2 because we have to normalize everything down to 1 again.
Yeah. So we've got 4 and then... I've lost track, to be honest.
No, it's just that when you start messing with these numbers,
right.
You're going to start, the math gets a little more complicated.
Right, because
you still have to normalize.
We'd ideally like to have a scale value somewhere. Yeah.
So,
that we factor in correctly.
This is good.
Yeah, I like this.
I want to check the size of the... So that's here. Yeah, the nav bar stays the same height.
Nice.
Okay, good. So we're doing pretty well.
Switcheroo?
We're ahead of the curve. So yes, let's switch around.
All right.
And I got the inside path this time. Okay, I feel it's a slight height difference. There we go.
Whee! All right. So we talked about maybe animating the colors a little bit. Shall we?
Ah, okay. So are you thinking the color of the splash?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And you kind of hit on this. The splash in our inspiration design pops a bit more, probably just because of their base colors, but we might be able to steal a little bit of that by animating the color of our pulse as it goes. So.
Right, so when you start the splash effect, the color inside the splash is going to animate at the same time. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have a tween for this, right?
We do. Color.lerp. No, I think we can just use it basically in Beacon Painter, because what would really be nice is obviously, having colors.blue in here. We did that hastily. So let's expose a color, and this will be the beacon color.
Okay.
And then required this dot beacon color.
Man, you're typing so much faster than my typing.
And
we would have had this done in 5 minutes if he'd have been typing.
So we've got beacon color.
Yep.
And now because we made it required, it's being helpful. They're like, hey, we need a color. So now up here, we can, it's less ridiculous to give a hard-coded value here, because at least now the widget isn't so opinionated about how it draws.
Okay.
Do we want to stick with blue? I think we agree that it's not a good scheme. Blue and
This blue on top of yellow is
Right.
Is not quite kicking it. Not with a white background anyway.
Let's try like a, I don't know. Let's try like a light purple maybe.
Okay.
Colors, and then isn't there like an accent we can get? I don't know. Let's try this.
Okay.
I think also the yellow. That's a very opinionated yellow we've got going on.
That is a very there's a very big bird yellow.
Hey, also, where did they go?
Okay, that's a good point. The icon color, blah, blah, blah. The painter, will we be painting over it now?
I don't think so.
Okay. Pass the color in, do a hot restart, and see what happens.
Let's see. Okay, they're back. And we've got purple and, ooh, it still looks really bad with the yellow.
Okay. I mean, we can always change the slash color as well, or the icon color.
But my idea, we need to change the icon color, but let's see if we can just have an implicit color animation here by kind of concealing that within the Beacon Painter.
Okay.
So what I'm imagining is at all times we have our beacon color here. So we can maybe store another color that is like our destination color or like end color. Let's call it end
you're
color.
going to lerp between the two. Okay, right.
And so then we don't have to pass it in. We'll just store it once. So we can say the end color equals colors.color.lerp, which is linear interpolation. So we're going to say we're starting with our beacon color.
That's really clever. You're doing the lerp on the construction.
And if we want to lighten it by 50%, we could also say, actually, I don't know how clever this is since it's a stateless widget and it's just getting thrown away all the time. Or no, is that true of a custom painter? Probably not, because this is creating.
No, I think it might be thrown away because it's tied to the widget, and the widget might be
being thrown away.
Blown away. We'll find out.
Right.
Widget life cycles. There's another good topic for a show.
Indeed.
So what are you doing there?
Okay.
So you have beacon color.
Yes.
Which is what currently you're purple.
Yes, currently purple.
Colors.white, which is basically going to merge it almost into the background because it's not quite a white background, but it's pretty close.
But we're only going 50%.
But we're only going 50%. So it's basically going to lighten it.
Now, this is where the magic really happens. Our color here, beacon color, isn't actually this anymore. It is now another color.lerp for our beacon color to our end color, progress being the beacon radius.
Wait.
So
Sorry, mind has melted out my ears.
So
we
we're
have two color lerps where they're lerping from, you've got the end color.
So end color is like light purple. Think of, since we know we passed in purple, we call end color light purple.
Okay.
We could call it light color, but maybe one day we'd even want to allow a darken mode or a light mode.
Of course, and this is not changing at all.
Right, so this is going to be static at light purple.
Right. So you're working out the end point and then you're going to lerp. So using the lerp to work out. So that means no matter what color you pass in,
we're going to animate toward it lightened by 50%. Now we're also starting with
Smart guy.
Don't listen to him. Now we're also starting with light purple, so this may be too much, but let's see.
And then you lerp from the color to the light color.
We may need to restart.
You might also want to slow it down.
Oh yeah. That'll make it snazzier. Okay. Now while it's thinking about that, oh yeah, way too light. Let's go to regular purple. Where's the thing? What's happening? Oh, I can't type purple. Purple. All right.
Okay.
Well, I think I've been too cute by half.
Okay, so why don't we have a look and see why that's doing that?
Oh, you know what's going to happen if I print the color? Let's 50% may also just be an aggressive amount of lightening.
Okay, so
Whoa, you can see it there, and it disappears into
it disappears into white really quickly.
Yeah, I was really not expecting that. So our beacon
it
color
seems to me
to
that
the end color, and it's our beacon radius. That is our progress.
Well, that is our. What does that last value do?
This is the percent between the start color and the end color that we want our result to be. So this I would have.
Why is it going to white?
That's a great question.
If you just make the end color static, just
say
just for the moment to test it out.
So end color will be colors.orange.
Sure. So that goes well with purple.
Yeah, it's going to be really pretty.
Yeah.
Colors.orange. It's just sitting at yellow.
Because you're lerping between, well, purple and orange convert to yellow, I guess. Can you lerp it?
But it should end at orange. Because we're here on this line of code, 226, we're going to ultimately go 0% to 100% of the transition from our starting color to our ending color.
But the beacon radius there, doesn't that like cut it off at some point?
No, I think it should go 0 to 1. It should go 0 to 1, a double, right?
So what does that double do? That double.
It's the it should be the percent of A to B.
Should be the percent. But that only goes from beacon radius is 0 to 20, right? It isn't going from 0 to 100 or anything. Or it's not 0 to 1.
I thought we were passing it. You're right.
We're passing it. You need to normalize that radius.
Yes.
So
we divide it by 20.
So we have the max radius.
We divide it by 20, and that's why it's going to white so fast.
So if we divide beacon radius by max radius, that'll go 0 to 1, right?
So this gives us our translation, right? Our beacon radius by max radius. Oh, I see what you're saying.
So that will normalize it from 0.
Yes. So this is our animation progress, right? Yes. Because eventually beacon radius will be 20, and this will be 20, and that'll be 1, and that's full progress. So we've got animation progress, and now we fell victim. I would summarize this in a very favorable way.
Favorable way, okay.
We fell victim to having written this code in the past and forgotten what it was doing. I thought beacon radius was 0 to 1, which of course makes no sense because we named it beacon radius, and the radius is not.
But that was looking better. That was going.
Yeah.
So maybe your new lerp is gonna
I think it might have success. Yeah. So let's go to this.
So the end colors.
So we're gonna lighten our purple, and let's see how it goes.
Oh, you have to
click on the other one. Purple, and it kind of got lighter, but now let's try
0.2.
50 again.
Okay.
And
that is lightning.
That is getting lighter.
That is getting lighter. You could be a little more aggressive.
Oh, all right.
Just to hammer the point home that this is working.
All right. Yeah, let's get real aggressive. So we've got purple and look at it just
light,
fades
and then it
right
fades
out.
away. That's really cool.
All right. So I guess the fine-tuning question here doesn't have to be exhaustively answered of what is the coolest percent, but it's something like that.
So what we have done here is we have taken a single animation. So the controller is driving a curved animation, which is tweening between 0 and 1. And we're using this to drive the animation of the beacon radius.
Oh, look at that.
And then that's really cool.
Yeah, it's sending out a nice little pulse there, you know?
And then we're using that one animation of 0 to 1 to drive all the others. So we don't really have multiple animations happening. We have one animation driving what we're doing
Multiple
in the
effects.
custom painter, which we've implemented. You could do this. You can do this differently. There are, as we saw, was it size transition?
Size transition.
And you could start applying those, and you could even have multiple animations driving different pieces. But because everything happens in the bounds of the 0 to 1 and the animations begin and end at the same point, this is actually a really neat way of just using a custom painter to knock that effect out of the park.
So, in some sense, we have kind of hit our target. But in another sense, it's not very customizable. Well, we've got the inspiration, the original dribble design, pretty well implemented. But in another sense, the code's kind of cobbled together.
The code is crufty. There is much cruft inside this code.
Should we perform some maintenance so that Philip doesn't have to next week on the Boring Show?
I think that Philip loves performing maintenance, and Philip should take my crufty code and should always refactor it for the benefit of humankind, personkind, every kind of kind.
Would you have any other ideas for ways that we could continue to spruce the animation, or should we show how maybe once someone gets their idea onto paper, so to speak, they then tidy it up? What do you think makes the most sense to go
I
from there?
think I am the worst person in the world to try to do beautiful UX. And so I look at that and I go, I had a hand in making this. I really don't want to make it look terrible by trying to over mess with it. So unless you've got a really cool idea that we could do, I think we have a really neat effect at this point.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good.
So how are we going to tidy this up? We have a, the animation is like animations in Flutter. Obviously, you need to carefully think through them. There's a bunch of moving parts, but this one is simple. We have the controller. We have a curved animation, which is going to affect how the controller moves through the animation. And what it's animating is a tween from 0 to 1. So that seems straightforward. Do we want to mess with that, or is that pretty good?
I think that core structure that you just outlined, we definitely want to stick with.
Okay.
But we have this build function that we've got on the screen here is a bit, it's a bit of a minefield for posterity should they want to come through and make changes to it.
How not to abuse the ternary operator, because we have 3 of them.
Oh, we have 3?
Yeah, we do, because color is also we're also doing that. Yeah, everything is ternary. One of the reasons why we're doing this is because we have this
it's a ternary of ternaries.
Interpolated for what do we call it in Python again? List.
Oh, comprehension.
List comprehension. We have the equivalent of Python list comprehension here, building out the icons, which is nice because we could add several icons and it would just behave the same.
Right.
Except maybe for our offsets, but that's a thing that we could also potentially fix. But
I think the offsets would actually work. What would break the offsets is if we made the whole footer taller, or if we made the icons bigger or smaller.
Yes.
That would break the offsets. But the offsets are actually anchored to the icons. So even if we add more icons or make changes like that, they're going to move with their relative icons. So I think that offset that we have is pretty strong. Actually, changing the icon size might be the only thing that would break it. I think even growing the height of the nav-bar would not break it, I suspect. Because it's
actually, no, you were I think you're right. It's the icon size.
We can test it as well. 100.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's anchored around the widget that it encompasses, which is a little bit of
which is cool.
Backwards thinking there. But anyway, so let's see if we can maybe pull some of this logic out into other widgets that conceal the nitty-gritties of what we've got going on.
So fundamentally here, our decider for what is happening is our index.
Yes. Yep. And I suspect that we could make a new stateless widget.
Okay.
Stateless widget. Ooh.
I forgot to switch on the Sublime text.
Well, I think so. Sublime text.
So if you just do ST.
ST?
Oh,
ST? That's.
And then you'll be able to select Flutter Stateless Widget.
Enter.
Yep. Boom.
Look at that. Okay, so let's call this, I don't know, icon nav-bar.
Okay. We already have one of those?
Sorry. Item.
Okay.
Nav-bar item.
Nav-bar item. Perfect.
Super better. Super better.
It's super better. Yes, it is much better. So awesome. I'm trying to do
Very
Doge,
better.
and
Yeah.
I'm just getting it wrong.
I stumbled into it
Much
legitimately.
awesome. So better. There we go.
Okay, so the absolute bare minimum here is to extract all of this.
I see where you're going. Okay, yep. So we just want to plonk it in there.
Put it down.
Yep.
Now, a lot of things are wrong. So the first item that we might want to do is say bool is active. And we had this on the painter, so we can imagine this is going to just wire that through.
Yep.
It's final and
very good.
okay.
Okay, so we have active. That's probably required. Or you could make it false. That would make life a bit easier.
No, I love the required idea.
Okay.
That's
You must fill in all of the parameters on my constructors.
Navbar item and is active because it's just not safe to ever assume it's.
I mean, this is perfect. Like is active I equals
Right.
index.
And this is going to prevent anyone from accidentally leaving one of their icons off or making a false assumption like, oh, well, in this state, that one's not active. Like, no, tell it it's not active and be certain about it.
Okay,
So
good point.
Widget.active index. And we're up and running again. So now this all becomes, every time we have I equals this, we just say is active.
Okay.
So that's a little better.
It's a little better.
Now we've got our beacon radius and max beacon radius, and they were defined above. And personally, I still think, right, we should still imagine, we don't want to write code that would be terrible if we put it on pub, right?
Sure.
So the way an end user, where that's a programmer, would use this nav-bar is they probably want to pass most of their config into the top level. So I think that we still want to have these variables up here, probably ultimately, eventually coming in at this level instead of just being defined here. But we'll get to that later.
So what we're saying is the navbar itself is going to control sizes and okay.
So
fair enough.
This can also accept a final double beacon radius and a final double max beacon radius.
Okay.
And
okay, we're going to pop those in here. So at the moment, we're just simply moving the build portion of the build logic into a separate stateless widget.
And icon scale is our next one, so we'll need that as well.
Okay. But icon scale is okay.
Are you seeing something that I'm overlooking?
Nope.
All right, so icons. Now this should also just probably take an icon.
This should take a single icon.
And that is a icon data, looks like.
That is,
which is the internals of an icon. When you make an icon data variable, do you like to call it icon or icon data?
I get confused between icon data. I probably end up calling it icon data.
Okay, we'll do that.
That's just me, and the type system's going to tell me when I'm being daft. So
actually, I'm going to cut this real quick because that was up here. Okay.
Okay.
And widget.onPressed, so we need an onPressed.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like that onPressed takes an integer. So we'll define that here.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. So this is
pressed
now...
because this is onPressed. We'll tell it which index is pressed.
And, oh, you've already got it in a closure. That's great. So we just drop this.
Mm-hmm.
And this should be accepting the I. Oh.
It
needs to know its own index.
But couldn't we just simply pass in a function which has that
good
already
point.
there?
Yep.
So we just need to pass in a...
So it's going to actually be a full
void
closure.
callback, I think.
Oh yeah, can you specify void there?
No, I think
it's
I
implicit.
think there's a
type def.
There's a type def in the Flutter
yes.
SDK, which is like void callback or something callback. Void callback.
Nice. Nice. Okay, so we've got our onPressed. And that is widget.onPressed. But again, we have to closure it.
Well, we're passing through. Yep. Okay.
And all right, so we still just need the rest of our variables. We've got beacon radius.
Isn't refactoring exciting?
I did it wrong. How do I fix it? How do I computer?
Wait, what happened?
I just opened the sidebar.
Oh, you just click on the top icon thing there twice.
Oh, and it goes away?
And it goes away. That's how I do it.
Oh.
I mean,
I always keyboard shortcut it, but it didn't work. So then I panicked.
Okay, we have max beacon radius. Okay.
All right.
So what we've done is we've basically pulled the stuff out. We're still missing one, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thanks to the old, I think it's the icon scale.
Icon data, you have icon scale.
No, I think the other way, right? We have.
So we're passing a whole bunch of stuff down the tree.
Yes. Now, what we can also potentially do, let's remind ourselves. Uh-oh, computer's thinking hard about something. So
my MacBook is kind of old.
Uh-oh.
Sometimes it just gets tired.
Oh, hey, we can get rid of our ticker provider mixin and now make it a single ticker provider mixin.
Well, we can because we're not recreating the controller every single time.
And your old MacBook is going to be very happy.
Is it? Because all of them tickers it has to deal with.
Yeah, that's what it was.
My MacBook's ticker is in
okay, so where did we actually define all the icons? I would really like us to be able to...
We had a function list icons that we're passing it in.
Oh, we already are doing that.
Yeah.
Lovely. Yeah, okay, great. That's. I was hoping that we'd be able to have a pretty clean API like that where... I thought I opened a thing. Oh, I opened a very small widget.
You have to, yes. If you want to open everything, you have to shift tab.
Shift what?
Shift and then click it. Opens everything.
Oh, I see.
Because I used K0 to collapse everything.
Bottom nav bar, here we go, and it just takes the
Just the
icon
icon
list.
list.
Nice.
Yep.
Very good. Ooh, this is interesting. This is already taking an onPressed. So onPressed is, well, we just pointlessly wrapped a closure. It's already sufficiently enclosed, which is nice for us because that means best do onPressed. No? Can't? Why is that not? It's wrapped up above. onPressed. Oh, because this one does take an integer.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we've tidied up our build method, and we're really just looking at widgets in the build method instead of all of this juggling. How about now this new build method? We've got... I mean, really, we could just relocate the ternaries, but that would be pretty similar. This one, to me, is not looking as... doesn't look as important to continue to perform surgery on.
I mean, we still have a bunch of ternaries in there, but it is a lot more legible now.
It's true. We could pull the results of ternaries out into variables and then just put the variables in the widgets.
Sure. But
I've ruined it.
Have you?
I've ruined it. Nice. Really good. Do we have any any helpful things here.
No, those problems are just stuff that we need to clean up at some point. So let's backtrack real quick.
So we know that our...
so all this is fine. Is it picking up the click?
Yeah, it seems like probably not, but I'm not actually sure why that would have broken. And now we will need...
Is that like a double function now or something? You're on tab. You don't need the arrow notation there, right?
Do I have... Oh, whoa.
There you go.
Did I have that before?
No. So it is...
Sure? I think I had that before. Let's go back and check. Let's consult. Oh, shoot, you're right, I didn't. But that just made it work. So...
Wait a second, are you sure it's working now?
Yeah, it was just working. We're on dummy page.
Okay, but...
After we got rid of the... So this worked.
Well, the other one should just have worked as well.
It super should have.
Hang on a second. Okay, so is this working now?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's change that back to what you had.
What on earth?
Okay, so that's wrong because you're not...
Here we go. This.
Yeah, but it should be closed.
Right.
And in fact, what you can do is you can get rid of the whole thing and just put it on pressed.
Indeed.
And are you...
Yeah, this is good.
Cool. So I think we're getting close to time on this one.
Oh, we are. We might be able to give people a few minutes back.
Might be able to give people a few minutes back.
But we've animated some colors.
Mm-hmm.
We extracted a lot of that specific business logic
Yep.
Out into its own widget. So our nav-bar now really just thinks about the animation, which makes sense as a thing for it to ponder. But then it just gets its result and passes that down to each individual item. And then the item is ultimately down here is what's responsible for invoking the painter, and it forwards along the animation progress indicator. And I don't know, any other closing thoughts?
No. Potentially you could move the animation down into the individual item because it's only ever one item being animated. Potentially.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder
but would that
if that would set us up for a potential issue if someone clicked very fast and in less than, or if we had like a slower animation, right? Let's think very academically here. If we had a slower animation.
You want to cancel the first animation and start the second, so.
Right. Our 300 millisecond situation makes that a bit
That's true,
unrealistic.
because then the animation might still be running.
Right.
So we'd want to be careful of that because the animation would be stored and we'd make it a stateful widget, which means the state would be maintained behind the scenes. So yeah, actually you're probably right, because we switch it between, having the animation at a level above helps keep that a lot cleaner.
Yeah, and the only, well, I feel like we're in a pretty good spot here. Well,
so the only thing we'd recommend changing is if you're going to hard code offsets, just be aware that if you refactor and change your sizes and whatnot, that's probably going to break things. So you can do that a little more flexibly. But I'm liking this. This is animations with a custom painter to achieve some pretty cool effects with a little bit of pretty simple math.
Everywhere ham radios are picking up this distress signal that we're sending out.
Cool. So,
well,
are we done?
I think so.
Okay, well, hope you enjoyed it. We now have like cool animations in DashCast. Hopefully at some point we'll get back to actually making it play some audio files.
I thought it did that.
Sort of. It don't quite work very well. Because I wrote that bit too. Because I've been meaning to get back to that.
Nice.
So anyway, it's goodbye from me.